Hey, what's up, everybody? Mogia Monster here. Welcome to Why the Fascination, or WTF Live. How's everybody doing tonight? It's great to see everybody in chat. Sandra, Mr. Lee 3PO, TFE, Paul, Ben, where you been, buddy? Great to see you. It's been a while, man. Sandra, Rex, I'm glad everybody's here. Hey, we got a good show tonight planned. I gotta turn my phone down. Tonight we have Michael Roser. He has Dark Hour Paranormal, great channel. If you like the paranormal, definitely have to check that out. But he'll be joining us here in a minute. I just want to check this real quick. All right, let me turn this down. I won't need my phone. All right, guys. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to wait. I'm just going to bring Michael right on. Michael, welcome to Why the Fascination.
Well, thanks for having me. It's fantastic to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy you could join me.
I like
so tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Tell us about your channel. Like, what's your channel about?
So my channel, Dark Hour Paranormal, is essentially an interview-driven channel. I interview everyone from high caliber guests in the field to the common experiencer. I've always believed that, both experiences are very valid, whereas some people like to concentrate on those who make more noise in the field. But there's so many of us who have these experiences, some of us every day, that, aren't given the outlet to express these experiences. And that's what Dark Hour Paranormal is all about. I try not to bring too much of my opinion into the matter. I try to stay benign, but as the human being and a very curious one at that I am, you'll find a little bit of interjection here and there in the way of my own bias when it comes to certain topics. Sure. But that's what Dark Hour Paranormal is all about. And I also work with Third Phase and Third Phase of Moon as well.
Now, tell us a little bit about Third Phase of Moon for those who don't know. And I'm curious about Third Phase because I'm not really too up on that. I know what the Third Phase of the Moon is, but...
Sure. Well, Third Phase of Moon is the largest UFO channel on YouTube in the world. And they make basically boots on the ground research very accessible for everybody to enjoy and digest whatever evidence is brought their way. A lot of what they get is submitted from viewers and people who know their name. And I'll be honest with you, it's very interesting to see what some people have had in way of not only video evidence, but anecdotal evidence as well. Seems like almost everyone has some kind of story, especially when it comes to our skies. Third Phase is the sister channel of Third Phase of Moon. And we have got that up and running as a repurposing of certain material so that we can have other eyes on it and put certain analysis to it as well, again, through different filters. And that's a fantastic channel and has been growing within the last month that we've really got it up and running. So
awesome. So yeah, we have a lot of people in chat that just love to ask questions. So guys in chat, you don't have to wait till the end. You know that to ask questions. You have any questions along the way, just throw them up, put them in caps, and we'll get to them. So what kind of experiences have you had? I know early on you did some ghost hunting. And how did you get involved in the paranormal itself?
Long story short, it's been a lifelong adventure for me when it comes to the paranormal. Since I was very young, I was aware of what we know as spirit today, or that in the peripherals. I was able to see and hear certain things that other people weren't in respect to people that had passed on and so forth. But to me, at a young age, that seemed pretty common. It wasn't an experience that I talked about in the same way that some kids don't talk about imaginary friends, although they have them. It just seems part of the normal environment. A lot of times you'll find children who communicate with these entities, and for them, again, it's just a normal course of, Bob is here. Well, who the hell's Bob? There's nobody in the family.
They don't know any better.
They don't know any better, and this being may appeal to them in a certain realistic way because kids have such imagination, and the boundary that draws between reality and imagination for a child is very muddled compared to what we grow into. So
sure.
But in respect to the paranormal world itself, I mean, I had a slew of experiences when I was a kid, things that I just couldn't explain, or I found myself in a situation. And it's always driven my curiosity. I was a big fan of unsolved mysteries when I was younger. Arthur C. Clarke, Art Bell. I was listening to them and watching them all. And again, just having this fascination. So in the late 90s, I decided to really take on the research and do a little bit of boots on the ground if I could, which wasn't much back then. But, we still had articles that we could go and look up, and the internet was just taking form. So it wasn't as filtered as it is these days. That being said, started getting into every aspect of the field, and in the back of my head, because I'd seen ghost hunters, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Again, in the way of boots on the ground research, I said, that's interesting. They're putting themselves in these places that are purported to have activity and just seeing what they can find. And that's how it started, guys. I mean, the ghost hunting field has become much more expansive and encompasses, things that were not originally there back in the mid to late 90s as it first started. So, again, in my mind, I always had this thought. So I moved up to Massachusetts in 2006, 2007, I think it was. And I met a gentleman by the name of Rick Cianci, and he and I became very good friends. You guys might know him from his channel, Random Rick, Paratherium, and I think Paranormal Theory are all under the same umbrella there. So we got to talking, and I was like, listen, we both share an interest in the paranormal. And though he hadn't had any experiences really himself, well, I guess he did, but I didn't realize that back then. We decided to form Dark Hour Paranormal as the team name. So in lieu of the way that Ghost Adventures was doing some things, I liked the fact that they kept the outfit small. So I said, let's bring one more guy on. We'll have a total of 3. We can keep track of each other in the field at the very least. You know what I mean? Let's do that. And he said, okay. So we brought in another person. His name was Chris. And with the 3 of us, we decided that, we would go around to the different locations, and we started poking around for ourselves. Well, we did this for a little while and had some mediocre results, but all of us really wanted to do something publicly in an expressive way. So we talked to a local a local television station, and they agreed to air our show if we put something together. They said, listen, let's have you make a pilot and, come back to us with that, and we'll talk. So, okay, great. So we went out and consciously attempted to film this pilot. And in doing so, we ended up going to 2 different locations, and both of them, I ended up catching a negative attachment that followed me home and messed with me for a good 3 months each. Wow. And at that point, and everything that I had gone through, because I was trying to talk to the guys and they just weren't experiencing what I had experienced, or was experiencing at the time, I should say. They didn't ridicule me in any way, but they just didn't understand. And it was really hard for me to kind of get any sort of lock on what the hell was going on, because it was just sort of a foreign experience to me, but I knew what I was dealing with. I could feel it at every waking moment. And sometimes when I was sleeping, it was there messing with dreams. So, I mean, again, this was 2 different energetic attachments that were very different from each other, but completely horrible in their own right. I had to cancel the show. I said, listen, guys, I'm sorry. I can't go out into the field anymore, because every time I do, I risk bringing something back with me, no matter how much protection I'm using, no matter who I've talked to. They say, don't go over to this side of the property. I don't. They just come to me. So I said, much to my chagrin, I have to pull out of this. And, I'm sorry to both of you. And there was a little bit of, hurt feelings, of course. But, it was just what it had to be. Now, that actually frustrated me more than anything, because I had such passion for this field. And if any, we all share this sort of curiosity that we carry with us. And I was so upset. I said, well, what can I do now? I mean, if I can't go into the field, what can I do? So I said, well, let me just dive back into the research end of things. And so I started going back into our historical accounts of, different triangles around the world, different cryptids, you name it. I just really dove back into it. And then they started messing with me from that end. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm either going to have to put an end to this in one way or another, or I'm going to have to do something entirely different. But that's not what my heart is telling me to do. It's telling me to stick with what I'm doing. So I pushed forward wherever they would come in and start to bother me. I would just push forward. I wouldn't let it stop what I was doing. And eventually got back into radio, because I did have a radio show many years ago, I think back 2003, 4, and 5. But I decided, let's get back into this. And I researched some of the platforms, and Spoon was what came up first. Started broadcasting on Spoon. Rick finally comes around 10 years later. He says, listen, we've always wanted to do something together. Why don't we put something together on YouTube? And that is the birth of Dark Hour Paranormal as the YouTube station.
Right on. And how long have you been on?
Since May of this past year.
Okay. Yeah,
not very long.
Not much longer than me.
Oh.
Ben wants to know, what kind of experiences did you have as a kid? You mentioned you had those experiences.
So, again, there's a plethora of them. So I'm going to kind of single a few out here. So early on, I remember there was an entity that used to come to my window, and the way that I saw it or interpreted it was some sort of like scary bear. Okay. I don't really know how else to describe it. In my kid mind, I'd look over my window and the outside lights would be on and this thing would be right in the window just looking at me. And it was a connection between the eyes. Yes, I saw the face and the hulking figure that was like more of a bust shot. But it was the eyes that really terrified me, to the point where I'd get out of bed and I'd go and talk to my mom, like 6, 7 years old. Like, listen, Now the curious thing is that my room was on the second story of a house. So in order for something, even if it were physical, flesh and blood, you'd have to figure a way to scale up pretty much a pitch that goes 90 degrees and then comes back up this way. So it almost is impossible for something like that to be there. But I very clearly remember that. And I also remember the feeling again associated with it. So we'll fast forward a little bit and up to the age of 12 or so. I was in middle school and I met this guy. He was sort of a loner and would sit in the back of the class along with this other guy. And I always had a heart for people. I want to know people, even at that age, I wanted to get to know him regardless of what other people were thinking. So I befriended him and this other guy. And we were in the library one day. He goes, "Hey, come here. I want to show you something." He pulls out a book. I was like, "What's that?" He opens to a page. And I can't remember what the art form is called. They used to do it on slate where they would just draw lines and it would eventually become this picture based out of lines. I cannot remember the method of that art form. But there was this etching that was clearly printed on the book there, by something. It wasn't just drawn on, it was printed. And it was a picture of this skeleton leaning on a coffin of sort in a graveyard. I don't remember. He had something in his hand and the entire scene around it was just desolate and like what you would figure, one of the most places devoid of life would be. And he very seriously looks at me and he says, "I can take you here." I said, "What?" He said, "I can take you here. Do you want to go here?" I said, "Well, I don't understand." You know what I mean? He's like, well, starts talking a little bit about how he's into magic and the occult and so forth. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I don't think I really want to go there, but curious you can do it. Long story short, he invited me over his house one day and he wanted to show me this ritual that he was going to do. And unfortunately, by the time I got there, the night before, he had attempted something along these lines and burnt a huge hole in his floor with some fire that had gotten out of control. And the way that he would describe it was, very esoterically influenced. It was something that just sort of happened. And so when I did come to his house the next day, we weren't able to do that. He didn't feel comfortable about it. So, my folks knew that I was befriending these people and they didn't ever hold judgments, about who I decided to associate myself with. And my mother went for a reading shortly after this, and she came back and she said, "Hey, listen, I want to talk to you." I said, "What's up?" She says, "Well, I went for this reading," and my mother was very good about sharing certain aspects of her readings with me, even early on. It was a very helpful thing as time went on for me to understand not only myself but other people around me and so forth. But she says the reader mentioned that there was a very evil presence around our family. Do you know anything about that? And then immediately it clicked in my head what this might be. And I realized it was coming from this individual. Not that he himself was malevolent, okay? But the things that he was dabbling in could lead to some pretty horrific results. And so I said, "Oh God, okay." And I said, "Listen, I can't really hang out with you right now for a little bit. Let's just kind of get the distance here. I can't be associated with certain things, blah, blah, blah." And for what it was worth, he understood. But, here's something that it seemed very benign to me to have this friendship and to be sort of interested in this. As a kid, I never understood that there is certain peril when you start to play with some of these ancient incantations and so forth. and that was sort of an eye opener for me.
Well, you're clueless.
Yeah, it was an eye opener. Yeah, I learned a lot from that experience. But as a kid, there've been many instances where things don't seem to really connect. You know what I mean? I fell off a chimney climbing this thing one day on a house that was being built. I remember the fall and was knocked out clean and somehow made it back to my house with, I think, 3 children around the ages of 9 and 10, 2 of them little girls dragging my body back to my house from way down the street. And yet I had no issues from that. When I did wake up sometime later, never had an issue after that. So I've been very lucky in a lot of ways.
Wow.
Sorry to be so long-winded.
No, dude, talk away. I love people who can talk.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Yeah, I had an experience when I was a kid. I was 10 years old, and I was skateboarding in a laundromat in an apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I wiped out, and I woke up in the hospital. So you talk about the whole knocked out, and somehow I found my way back to my grandmother's apartment with amnesia. And I woke up in the hospital. So that getting knocked out and going, where are you? And you're lucky you didn't have any, residual effects from that, but for 2 little girls to drag you, that's crazy.
Yeah, there was 2 little girls and one of my friends from next door who was actually smaller than me. So I don't know how the hell they got me back there, or even what my parents must have thought when they saw me, laying down there on the front stoop.
Yeah, that must have been a surprise for them.
I would say.
A couple more shout outs. Central Florida Bigfoot, what's up? Stephanie Perez. And who else? Squatching Cowboy, what's up, Joe? Audrey and Jamie, Toy Airy. Oh, wow, we got a lot of people here tonight. Awesome. Mike Stockton. Yeah. Crow Creek, what's going on, Tony? So again, if you guys have any questions for Michael or myself, put them in caps and just throw them out there at any time during the show. That'd be awesome. Who else is here? Robin Ward. Hey, hi, Roxanne. If I'm missing anybody, Scotty B, sorry. I like to give my shout outs. What's up, Kim?
Yeah, sure.
My sister's in the chat.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's all of a sudden, like I've been doing this. I was probably 50 shows in before my family shows up. Better late than never. Excuse me. Hey, Mark, what's happening? Sawdust Beast. Good to see you. So what is your plans for your show? What do you hope to get out of it? Get out of it sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
My long-term goal for this is let's see how far we can go. I have some visualizations of where I'd like to see myself end up, working in this field on perhaps a larger scale. And I think that's within the reach of reality for me at this point.
The realm of possibility.
Yeah, most definitely. But the whole point in doing this is to explore the passion and to highlight the field, especially like these subcategories of the field, like for example, black-eyed children, or you can go into the subcategories of cryptids and you can talk about the bunyip, or you can talk about Beast of Bray Road. I mean, these are all very interesting stories that have received some attention, but locally they're legends. Just to give a couple examples. And
real quick for guys, if you don't know what the bunyip is, it's a cryptid down in Australia. So just so you know, some people might have went, "A what?"
Sorry, I should have explained.
No worries.
But yeah, I mean, it's a safe place people can come and explore and express and talk, and not be worried about judgment.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like to provide here is a judgment-free zone. People can come out, hang out, say what they want, and no one's going to say shit to them about it. They're not going to criticize or ridicule. And because everybody's here, I think everybody here has some sort of story. They're here for a reason. that there's interest in the paranormal or Bigfoot or whatever, but that fringe topic, there's a lot of people, I think, that in chat, I know people in chat that have stories.
Well, it's interesting to see how many people have come to our shows who have their own experiences. A lot of times when you sit down, you think, you see this many people in the chat or however many people have subscribed to you, you're like, oh, that's great. It's a lot of interest in what I'm doing. But you don't realize that, the majority of those people more than likely have had their own intimate experiences with what we're talking about.
Yep. That's where the whole why the fascination, because I started just watching YouTube channels, got into Bigfoot, watched that, and then I started doing live chats, going into live chats, and that's how I started. So I realized that all the people that I was seeing every day, I was like, these people have to have a story. So if you go and look back at my channel at the description, it'll say, I know everybody has a story, so maybe we can share it, and feel free to come on, and if I don't have a guest, I'm wide open. Anybody can come on, and I get some amazing people that come on, just out of the blue.
That's awesome.
With some awesome stories.
I have seen a couple of you guys' shows. You, Alien Addict. There were a couple others that something happened where you didn't have a guest, or the guest didn't arrive the way they were supposed to, or whatever, and somebody else would jump in, and it turned out to be a fantastic show.
I did a few weeks like that. I did probably almost 2 months like that, I think, where I didn't have a guest, and it was just, come on, guys, and it worked out well.
Awesome.
There was some trying times when you're like, I'm not going to get a guest. I'm not going to get a guest. I'm going to have to talk for 2 hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's cool. I mean, I enjoy doing this. Meeting people like you. There's just something about the paranormal and the whole thing that it fascinates me. I'm intrigued. I've had paranormal experiences, but my interest now is, my fascination is Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But like my dad's had UFO experiences. I've had ghost experiences, and so that's where my stuff lies.
And you know what, guys, we're gonna get into that on Friday night on Dark Hour Paranormal, when Mongolian Mogo Mong Moy.
I love it.
What the hell is it? Mogian. Okay, thank you. Ever since I found your channel through Long Island Bigfoot, who recommended, I have struggled with this word, and I apologize. It's really
everybody does. That's
God.
I love it, dude, because people can't pronounce it, and once they learn it, they know it. But I laugh watching people stumble all over it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. At least you can, have that sense of humor about it, because, man, that's a bear of a word.
Well, it's not said. A lot of locals, I think, up on the rim pronounce it Mugion. But I've heard it pronounced Mogion so many times. It's the double L's that are like the Spanish yeah. Mm-hmm. So it kind of throws people off. They don't realize it, and they just. I get Mongolian a lot.
I can see that.
Mogolone. Yeah,
that's funny. But that being said, everybody, Mogian Monster is going to be on Dark Hour Paranormal on Friday, and we're going to get into his experiences and dive relatively deep within that to talk about what Mogian's experienced and where he comes from and where he's going. So be there or be square, right? That's what they say. I don't know, it's not the 50s anymore. I don't think we have anything akin. So
Toy Harry says, I've been struggling with Mogian for years, ever since I moved to AZ, but I'm confident I will get it one day.
Yep. Me too.
What did you say? He's on Chinese menu. Mongolian beef. Come on, Lockbeard. Mogi Yawn. Come on, dude.
Clever.
Yeah.
Clever, mate.
Oh, what's this button do? Where did he go? No. I'll behave. No, Lockbeard's cool. He's got some interesting theories.
Oh, cool.
Intelligent person. I'm going to try to get him on one of these days. What's up, Mikey? If he's willing to come on and talk,
Yeah.
we'll see.
All right.
I've heard about the monster on the TFV. Says I've heard about the monster on the rim for over 50 years. Wow.
It's a long time.
Yeah. Well, right on. So how did you hook up with Mike and Rich? Long
Well,
Island Bigfoot and Goof On.
it started with Rick Cianci. He was a big fan of Goof On Radio Stream, which was what it was about a year ago. And I actually had never really considered watching a live show. I didn't know that there was a chat option. So, for the first few 4 or 5 shows that I even watched Goof On, I didn't know that I could be in the chat. I didn't know there was one. So I very quickly realized and jumped in. And, a relationship just kind of built from there. And it wasn't just Rich, it was people in the chat room. Like your chat room, you got a lot of great people over in Goof On, and these people sort of circulate in our circle of interest in the shows that we do. So you'll see a lot of people come back, and it's really kind of cool. So yeah, that's really where that started. I'd started listening to Goof On a lot, and I ended up just talking to Rich. I wanted him to come on my show at some point, and he actually asked me to come on his show pretty much the same time that I asked him, in a similar way that, when we talked
Sure.
earlier on. So that was cool. That was sort of the launch out, and people started to actually see my face and, recognize that, along with Dark Hour Paranormal. So that was really cool. And Long Island Bigfoot was another one that I found in the chat. He was talking, and I expressed interest and said, hey, shoot me an email, or however we ended up getting in touch. And I talked to him a little bit and said, hey, come on the show. And right there, a relationship was born out of that as well.
Yeah, Mike's good people.
Oh, Mike's awesome. Mike's awesome. Yeah. But that's the cool thing about doing this sort of work, when you have interviews with people, and if you yourself are a personable kind of individual or character that holds that sort of nature, you're going to develop some great friendships. I mean, I have people that I have worked with, and I can consider friends now that I never in my life prior to doing this would have ever considered even getting a chance to talk to them.
Sure.
And yet, you're talking to the person behind the image. And that's, I think, the most important thing when you sit down to speak with somebody. You got to appeal to the person behind the image, that they portray, whatever they're known for.
Right on. Yeah, I caught Mike's video recently. What did he release one yesterday?
Saturday, I think it was, right?
Where he actually, it's something walking in the background. I love his reaction. It was fucking excellent. He's like,
great.
What the fuck? and then all you hear is, yes. I was so happy for him. I was like, oh, right on, dude. You got something.
Oh, that's the piece of gold right there that we're looking for. That one little shining fleck in the miring stream of everything else that we catch and go through. That's so cool.
Yeah. That was a cool video. Just his reaction was awesome.
Oh, yeah. And one of the more convincing pieces of evidence that he's brought forward. I mean, I enjoy his pictures too, but this video stuff, really cool, man. Glad he got that new camera.
Yeah, and he's learning how to use it, and that's good. So, oops, I gotta scroll down and chat. See if I missed anything. Wonder Woman, what's up, Kathy? Good to see you. Just gotta make sure I didn't miss any questions.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't look that way. Huh. So yeah, I've caught a few episodes of your show, and I dig it. You approach it in a way that's a little more, what's the word? You're very well spoken.
Oh, thank you.
It's easy. No, but it's easy to listen to. When you're on your show, and I can just sit back and like, right on, and just enjoy it. You've had some good guests on, so yeah, I encourage everybody to check his channel out. It is Dark Arrow Paranormal. Um, it's fun. I when you asked me to come on, I was like, how do we make this work the best? In my mind, I'm like, well, why don't you come on Tuesday and then we'll promote for Friday, and it just
Yeah.
trying, because we're all struggling, we're all trying, and I think we really need to support one another. And you know, hey, Dill, what's up, Mokesters? And they're always coming up trying to figure out names for me for my people in chat.
I love it.
Oh, it's great. Oh, let's see. What does Paul say? DHP, Mogs, LIB, BFO, Space Radio got great followers. Yeah, they do. Or we do.
Great people. Yeah. Great people.
Here's TFV asks, Dark Hour, have any repeat or regular visitors, spiritual / ghost?
No. And I sort of hesitate on that, and I'll tell you why. I don't have any repeat or regular visitors in the way of entities that haven't crossed over. I see them maybe at most twice, depending on who it is and how they passed and so forth. A lot of times they'll come to me first and they'll make their presence known. But it's a different vibration than someone who has actually made that cross into the ethereal world, if you will. In respect to like higher entities, yes, I'm very close to some of my guides, which have actually had personalities that I can recognize and call forth and know them as that name. So that, I mean, all the time, like I'm always plugged into that. But as far as entities again that haven't crossed over, not so much. I don't see them hang around. A lot of them are very curious, I believe, in exploring their new reality, because it's my understanding that once you get on that other side after going through death, that you're sort of in this limbo type state, although you are creating the same way that we create the world around us, and there's a collective consciousness that goes into it, but there are no limitations to where you can go and what you can do. If you can think it, it happens. It's very fourth dimensional. But eventually you have to go beyond that. And I know that there's a shift in vibration that's very, very rapid, and it's very intense. Some people talk about this experience by going into the light. So once you go into that light, then you do the life review, and you have to let go of, what you can in order to move forward in your journey, so to speak, as a soul.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, we have a lot more free will than we realize.
Now or later?
Both.
Okay. Who else? Oh, Larry's here. What's up, Larry? Beast of the Woods. All right. Don't want to miss this question. Do you think some hauntings are like a bleed through or of earlier times in some cases? What would that be, like a residual haunting?
That's what I would say. Yep, it'd be more like a residual haunting, but it depends whether it has sentience behind it or not. A lot of the residual hauntings don't seem to have certain sentience; they seem to be on a loop, and that's just as easy as somebody having certain thought that'll just keep going round and round. It depends on the area too. Some of these reportedly haunted places are sitting on energetic fields or ley lines, and that natural existence is already creating a thinning of the veil, so it might be easier to see something bleed through. But those are my thoughts on that. Again, residual in most cases, but you know what, it's interesting too, because there are people sensitive enough that they can walk into a room, put their hand on the wall, and they can actually see and go through the emotions of everything that had happened in that room. Everything around us is a vibrational record keeper. And it's one of the reasons I think that emotion gets held physically in a location where something traumatic has happened. So
yeah. No, that makes sense. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Let me scroll down. Squatcher Cowboy says, "What got you into this?" I think we covered that a little bit earlier, but if you missed it, who else? Shadow people. Where'd it go? I'm like, I go to push it and it moves. What about shadow people? Asks my sister, and I'll explain why in a little bit.
Okay. Shadow people are interesting in respect to the anomalies that we can observe. There's a lot of thought about where these entities come from, where they reside, how they're influencing us, or even interacting with us. It seems to be very different from experience to experience. Some people have had these shadow entities directly attack them, and some of them will describe an electric kind of jolt when they make contact with this, along with other intense feelings that are not so pleasant. But that's rare, I think. I mean, myself, I've seen shadow people for probably all my life. One very definitive experience is I was moving here in Massachusetts into a house that was actually quite old. And as you got up the center stairwell, my room was on the left, which I was loading stuff in. And if you were to take a right, there's a living room. And then if you were coming around, there's the kitchen area. So I'm loading my stuff in. Out of the corner of my eye, I see three people standing over by where the kitchen is in the living room. And at this point, I'm pretty aware when something like that comes up. I don't immediately just look at it. I try to let it have that persistence and maybe retention, you know what I mean? So I can kind of feel it out for that moment. I might be allowing myself extra to do it in this approach. It was
Sure.
three people. It looked like a child, and they're all shadow people, by the way. I didn't see any faces. They're all outlines, but they're clearly standing there. It was a child. I think it was a young boy, and the mother was behind him, this woman, and then another guy was next to her with a period hat on. They all had what appeared to be period clothes. Like if you could see on the shadows, there's like the ruffles and how the sleeves kind of hung down. And I thought this is really interesting. And as I'm looking at this, I'm kind of saying, well, hi. I'm acknowledging that they're there. And what I got off of them, the feeling that I got was, well, who's that? What are you doing? I mean, why are you here? Not anything aggressive, but just very
Sure.
curious. And I thought that was interesting. So there's actually another part to this story. I told the guy that I was living with, it was his house. He grew up there. And I was like, listen, this is what I experienced. He's like, oh, yeah, no, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I realized we weren't going to get very far. So one evening, we used to have a lot of people over as musicians and MCs. We used to sit and cipher and break out guitars and so forth. So we had about, I don't know, 8 or 9 people in the living room this evening. So we're all sitting there, and all of a sudden in the back by the kitchen, you heard a knock on the door, 3 knocks. And I looked at my roommate and I said, are you expecting somebody? He goes, no, are you? I said, no, it was late at night. I was like, that's really weird. I mean, we have a lot of people here, but I'm pretty sure everybody we invited is here. So I immediately got up, and this is only a few 4 days after I had seen this initially. Went back there, and I went over to the door and I said, hello? I heard nothing. So I then unlocked the door and I opened it, and I was greeted with all of these cases of empty beer from the last tenant that was living there that literally filled up the entire stairwell. Nobody could ever get up there. And as I did this, I turned around and I looked at my friend. I was like, dude, you heard that knock, right? And now a couple other people in the party were sort of like looking over like, yeah, oh, we heard that. One of the biggest guys in the room said, well, you know what, guys, I think it's time for me to go home. And he left, which I thought was really funny. He was, for all intents and purposes, a public figure in his own right. And I never saw that side of him say, oh, I'm getting a little nervous here. But yeah, I mean, my life is full of kind of experiences that are not necessarily tactile, but just enough that you knew you had something between your fingers.
Sure. Now, the reason my sister brought up the shadow people, a couple weeks ago, it was in the morning. She went out onto her patio to have a coffee and cigarette, and she hears this guy yelling. and he's walking up the street, and he's really aggravated, but he's yelling, and she doesn't know what he's yelling at. Whatever, just caught her as weird. And he passes in front of a wall, and he stops, and the shadow is on the wall. Well, the shadow bends down to pick up something. He never moved.
That's interesting. I've heard
Yeah.
of things like that happening before, but usually there's an intention behind it, not something more loose or random. Even in the wake of emotion, heavy emotion, that's something more in the way of
Attachment.
I think again, classically, I think this is more in the way of energetic manipulation, perhaps through magic or something like that. Shape shifting in some way. But again, that's very intentional, and it wouldn't. I don't think that it would happen so easily for somebody who had no discipline in that. That's very strange, though. That's very curious.
She was watching it, and she saw the guy standing there, and she saw the shadow against the wall, and the shadow bent down like it was picking something up, and the guy never moved, and it freaked her out.
That's crazy. I mean, I understand that, we can have attachments, and some are more minor than others, but, others really do make their presence known, and I don't know about this individual, but if somebody's a heavy drinker or they use certain substances, there's a better chance of having an attachment that sticks around, if not 3, 4, or 5 or more, that are just kind of waiting to feed on those vulnerabilities that people who do this sort of thing on a regular basis display. I like using the example of when somebody gets blackout drunk, and they go through the night, they're doing all this stuff, and half of it doesn't even reflect who they are as a person when they're in their sober mind. They wake up the next day, everybody's looking at them like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. And the person's going, why? What did I do? I don't remember anything. Well, here's the idea, at least in theory, that when you get to that state, especially with alcohol, your spirit, that energy, that core energy, just can't take the environment of your body at that moment. It's just too toxic. So literally part of it separates from the body, and in doing that, it leaves a vacancy. And guess what? All those ones hanging in, boop, just pop it in, like taking your body for a joyride, like someone left the keys of the Corvette outside, going around hitting everything in sight, breaking this and the other thing, and then just returning it to the front of your house and taking off, saying, hey, have a nice night. And you wake up and you go, what the hell happened to my car? It's very similar when it comes to this stuff. So
that's an interesting way to put it. Good analogy. Batmom asks, have you ever dealt with crawling things size of toddler, and do you know why they do that? I don't know.
I have seen shadow images, I will say, that sort of didn't have a very definitive definition in the way of what I was looking at. It was constantly morphing. Some of them were smaller. I usually attribute those to perhaps animals. Okay. I'm not really sure what it is that you've seen, but chances are, if it's something that's, it's hard to say because these things can take any form that they like. Usually shadow people, though, at least insofar as we know, they don't seem to have a direct initiative when they're interacting with us, not necessarily just to cause fear. We're not really sure why they're there. So if you're seeing something that small, like a child crawling around, I'm more inclined to say that that's paranormal in nature. It might actually be a human spirit that's still, in this vibration.
Toby says, Mike Mogs, why do you think some hauntings are residual? Why some folks get like poltergeist hauntings? Do you believe they're connected to the host or residents or both?
Well, what are your thoughts on this?
I think they could be either connected to the person or the place or the land that the place is on. Poltergeist, I think that's sort of like what you just said about opening yourself up, where I do poltergeist haunt people or like possess? I don't know. I know they do places, but
it's a gray area, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I think that a lot of the hauntings. I want to say uh, they're attached to places, but then you hear all these personal attachments on people. So it's, hard to say. And I don't know, if you could definitely define it as a poltergeist or, you know,
Well, this is an interesting question. It's a really good question too, but it has a very long and involved answer. When I'm looking at this question, the first thing I'd like to do is categorize and classify what a residual haunting is versus poltergeist activity, and then, to the best of my ability, define what those characteristics might be, whether they share certain things or there are many differences between them. In this instance, I mean, residual to me has, again, doesn't necessarily have a sentience behind it. It's something
it's just a
left over.
recording, basically. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great way of saying it. It's like a recording of an event that occurred energetically. When you talk about poltergeists or, even spirits that are just mischievous, because poltergeist is usually on the more nefarious end of things.
Mhm.
But that really just describes the activity. It doesn't necessarily describe whatever the energy is that's creating it. Now, it's been put plenty of times on the table that, one, it might not necessarily be devils or demons that are actually causing these poltergeist activities. They could just be really, I don't like the, all right, I'm going to say it this way, but I think you guys understand. A person who's really bad in their life and very, selfish and involved, and that's what their focus was. It's the same thing. They can be a dick in the life afterwards as well. It's just characteristic.
Sure.
Before they go into that light, where that ego, whatever's left of it, really does dissolve, they can be the same jerk they were in this life over there. So, some of them take pleasure in scaring people. Think of how many of your friends that you guys might know like to prank each other, or
Oh,
at
yeah.
some point in life have pranked each other. Some of those pranks are pretty freaking mean. I'll be honest with you, but we get a kick out of it because we understand. Well, if there isn't that communication or that connection or understanding that you're being pranked or messed with in some way, well, that could be a very scary affair. It's not just about things floating around the room. It's, the feelings going into dream states, being visited in dream states in, awkward ways or uncomfortable ways. So, I mean, these again are all activities that poltergeist tend to exhibit. Now, the second thing is it perhaps, at least to some degree, our minds, our subconscious minds, that are creating some of these environmental anomalies that we're calling supernatural?
Is
It's
that,
very possible.
what are those, topas?
Come again?
What are they called? Topas? When you have you heard that word before? A
I know
topa?
the word, but I don't remember what it means.
It's generating a reality by thought.
That would be it then. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be it. Absolutely. I mean, I think this is something we're doing anyway, but there's, certain aspects of ourselves that we're not aware of. Perhaps, we're just calling that, again, under an umbrella, the subconscious. But this subconscious is still interacting with reality. We're just not aware of it. So therefore, we're still creating on the subconscious level as well as the conscious level. And again, we're just not aware of what we're creating.
Somebody wanted to know, have you ever had an outer body experience?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And they actually kind of freaked me out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, just the feeling of, oh god, the initial feeling of that lightness, that buzzing, that sort of encompasses. I don't even know if that's the right word, because you feel like you turn into this vibration before you pop out of your body, and at that moment, for me, it becomes very lucid as to where I am. And I'd say half of the time I realize and I go, and I right back into the body. The other half, I might be able to sustain it for a little bit longer. But this type of work for me, as I can do it consciously as well, and there's an experience within that, I do a lot of work in the dream state. I do a lot of traveling. In fact, if I try to astral project through
That's what
meditation,
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
before I go to sleep, I actually will never go to sleep. I'll just travel and I'll wake up feeling like it's time to go to bed because I never slept. I had to do many experiments on this to make sure that that's what it was throughout the years. And I've come to the conclusion that I can't travel before I go to sleep because I'm going to be inadvertently traveling anyway. And I need to get some sleep.
Yeah, I had an outer body experience when I was a kid, but it wasn't like, it was due to a traumatic event. Like I had a fall and it was a fall. I don't know. It was intentional, but I slid down this like stream water slide thing, and when I landed in this puddle of water, my body stopped, but it was like my spirit tumbled out of me because for like 2 seconds, I mean, I landed squatted, my knees on my chest. For like 2 seconds, I was good 10 feet away from myself on my hands and knees looking at myself. And then it was only like 2 seconds, and then I came back to myself. But when I got back into myself, everything came back in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it sped up and real time kicked in, and, oh crap, I screwed up. Yeah, for that instant, I had an outer body experience, and I always called it an outer body experience, even though it was due to a traumatic event. Like some people might have called it a near death experience, but I'm pretty sure I'm on with calling it an outer body experience.
What happens sometimes too is that when the body is going to undergo such physical duress that it's actually going to truncate the life of that body, the soul itself knows this and will actually eject itself from the body as to spare the moment of impact on a car accident or something else horrific that's about to happen, which none of us would want to feel as it goes on. And I've been aware of that for quite some time, at least in theory, again, that's something that happens. But I think when we have those moments of trauma, there is an aspect of ourselves that will boot itself out of the physical body, and that's a protective measure. You're still going to have to deal with the emotions that surround it at some point, but this is a more protective measure.
Is there any way to clear residual energy? Does sage work, like doing cleansing?
Well, that's interesting because my experiences with sage are probably a little bit different than most, and that's because I tried using it during those times that I had attachments or have been in other places that something very negative was there. And I'll be honest with you, it only pissed off whatever was there. And that
Really?
might just be because I was working with, or surrounded by, I should say, more ancient energies that weren't responding to white light either. And I've had confirmations of this after the fact that there are some energies that are just that old that they just, it's ineffective to use something like that against them. But I mean, a lot of people do have good experiences with sage, and I think maybe for residual energy, that would be something to give a shot. Absolutely.
That's what's left of my sage bundle. I smudge usually before every show. I didn't do this one for some reason, but yeah, I always do a cleansing before a show.
Yep, some people live by that, and that's
I don't live
great.
by it, but I don't know what people are going to talk about sometimes, and I don't need, I just armor up a little bit. I'll sage and I'll say the Lord's Prayer and go for it.
That's it. That's all you can do. It's like a soldier going into battle. What do? You pray with your troop.
True. Wonder Woman wants to know, do you have vivid dreams you can't understand?
That's a good question. I don't. Yes. Okay. Long answer here is. I'm sorry. Short answer is yes. In respect to the traveling that I've done, and do during sleep, I've visited. I remember there was one time that usually this happens in the wee hours of the morning too. I find sometimes I'll wake up during the experience, but that's not often. I went to some dimension that I was definitely out of my body. I was somewhere else. I was like in space. Okay, I'm going to describe this the way that it looked and how I can express that, using the language that we have. It looked like I was in space, and in front of me was this prismatic display of lights that were so bright and brilliant. I mean, you could just feel, I felt connected to the lights, and every time I'd see a light going on and off or moving in a certain way, I could feel it within me. Now, in association with this light was this incredible music that I had never heard before. It was some sort of progression that just, it was so beautiful and so pure that I honestly, when I was in the dream, thought to myself, I want to stay here forever. And then the second thought was, I need to remember this melody so when I come back, I can write it.
Yeah.
And
I thought of that as soon as you said that.
that was the second thought I had, watching this. And I don't know how long it went on, but I can still very clearly remember what that experience was like. And when I came back to and woke up, I remembered the experience, but I couldn't remember the melody. And it's been killing me ever since. But, that being said, and I won't go too much into this unless you guys want to. I also, you know what, guys? All right. I've talked about the Montauk Project on a handful of shows that I've been on recently. And I'll just, again, put this out there. This is not something that I'm proud to be involved in. It's not something that I sought to look at and say, well, I want to be a part of that. Never in my research or what I understood afterwards ever came from that. It was just a natural course of the energy that I'm associated with on the etheric level, where, I have soul family that was involved there, and there was a piece of me that was in Montauk too. So how does this relate to the travel and dream? Well, those are the dimensions, some of those dimensions that we created and used in the Montauk Project. I still go to those dimensions, and I'm still a witness, and I'm working through what you might want to call karma in doing some of this astral travel work at night. A lot of it's unconscious. And then I come back and I remember certain things. And sometimes those memories are triggered by the research. For example, I would read a lot. The videos are great, presentations are great, but I like to read because you get more in terms of intuition. Sure. And when they're describing certain things, I have the vivid connection in my head. Now, the odd thing is that when I go back and I watch some of the videos, like when Preston, Al, and Duncan all went back to Camp Hero, as they're walking around and I'm looking at some of the facilities inside that were still open there, it's an exact match for what I've seen in my head. And when I started realizing that, I started getting a little scared. I started getting a little nervous. And I said, well, okay, again, I think this is really curious. I think the project itself is fascinating, but why do I feel so connected to this? And through certain research and going through readings and, my own inner work, I've discovered that my energy was there. And the reason that I'm remembering it this lifetime is not to, again, come up and glorify what was done in any way, shape, or form. It's more of a personal thing for me to understand, accept, and to let go.
Right on. Brandy wants to know, have you had any dream paralysis? And is that associated with the paranormal?
Yes, I've definitely had sleep paralysis. It is one of the most frightening things that you'll ever go through because half the time you can't breathe either. I was going through something with an entity that was in a house that I was living in, about 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago. And though there were other people in the house, this particular entity really liked to mess with me. And there were many nights where I would be in dream. It was one of those things where I was so tired otherwise that if I actually did go to sleep, it was the deepest sleep that you could ever imagine, but it was never for very long, more than an hour or two. And as soon as I'd get in there, all of a sudden I couldn't move and I couldn't breathe. And I could feel something, it almost like a weight is on you in one way, shape, or form. And no matter how much you struggle and push and move, your energy is just gone. There's just no energy to move until it releases you. And then all of a sudden and then you're waking up and you're breathing heavy and you're rubbing your head. You go, what the hell just happened? This has happened to me so many times, but usually around the time periods that I was dealing with something negative. So yes, I do believe that can be associated with the paranormal as well, to answer your second part of that.
Very good. Now, TFV, I'm not sure why, but don't sleep with your head pointing north. What is that about?
If I was to guess, I think he's maybe referencing our meridians and the magnetics and how they may connect, with the earth and so forth. I don't know enough about that, although I'm familiar. I don't have enough to comment.
Just curious if you knew anything about that. I'm sure TFV will throw a comment in there to explain that.
I hope.
Yeah. What else we got here? Squatching Cowboy. I had a dream the other night. I was a moderator on Moog's show.
That's funny. Well, he's got the bandana. I don't know. I mean, it's in the wrong place, but he's got a bandana.
He wore it the other night. It was great. He actually put it on his head the other night.
Attaboy.
He's like, it's usually around my neck, but tonight, and he puts it on. I was like, right on.
That's awesome. I love it.
Oh man, so many people do it. It's just it's a compliment, and I'm thrilled that people are willing to do that.
I like these little odes to each other that people do. I mean, myself, I wore sunglasses for a good part of the beginning of my show because it was a throwback to Goofon, who actually wore sunglasses. But the reason that I didn't understand is that the reason he wears sunglasses is because his eyes hurt when he's staring at the screen. I thought he was doing it for a fashionable look, but that wasn't the case.
That's tough, Mike. Not you, Mike Stockton. He goes, I hate the dreams where I'm with my wife and we are just talking, having a good time, and it feels so real, and then having to wake up just to go through the pain that she's passed all over again. That's rough, Mike, and my heart goes out to you.
Likewise, man. That's tough. Here's the thing too, when it comes to certain things like what he's mentioning here, it can be a gift and a blessing to be able to see some of these loved ones that come into dreams. And that's just as real as this waking life. I want to really emphasize that there is a tangibility to those kind of dreams, and they do happen in a specific space in a point in time, so to say. In coming back into this physicality, waking up into this waking dream, it is tough, but keep in your mind that these people that go and don't feel like they're here anymore, they're really not far away. In fact, I believe that a lot of them energetically hang out in our auric fields, especially when they were close to us in our lives. And the majority of these individuals, especially when you have a spouse go or a sibling or a parent or something like that, they stick with you until you make that crossover too. And for a lot of us, there's some of the first faces that we see when we do make that transition.
Ever wake up with that fuzzy teeth sensation, but on your inner energy that only a cleansing rids you of? Fuzzy teeth sensation on your inner energy.
I can't say that by that description I have had that experience.
I think I know what he's trying to say, but it's an odd way to say it. Hey, Linda. Linda Bennett's here. Good to see you. Sandra, I know Sandra had a question. I don't know if I asked it. This is the downtime. I do this all the time when I'm scrolling through looking for questions. I'm always like, it gets quiet.
I'm chill. I'm
That's
cool.
why I like people who can talk.
That works out well, my friend.
I thought Sandra had a question, unless it was Brandy's question that I read.
I don't really have the opportunity to talk to people in the chat the way that you do, Dave Scott, Richie from Goofon, because when I'm doing these interviews, I have to be so attentive in respect to the subject matter. I'll maybe get the chance to say hello, everybody, thanks for coming or whatever. But God, the moderators do great work on Dark Hour Paranormal.
My moderators are fantastic. But yeah, this is it's chat based. That's who this show is for, are the people that watch it and people in chat. And I've had many people from chat as guests, and it's just an amazing group.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So yeah, I definitely pay attention to my chat. Sometimes I miss questions but trying to do everything. And I know what you mean by, trying to pay attention to your guest. And I've gotten ragged out by people. You're not paying attention, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you try it. And they're like, yeah, you're right.
Well, keep in mind too, where I come from, my background is radio. Yeah. So, we had phone lines, you know what I mean? So in my head, I'm still sometimes in that mentality. And I think it's great that you guys can juggle the way that you do and still keep a flow during the show.
We try, I do. I try. And like I said earlier before we started, I said, yeah, my chat is usually awesome for questions. And um, here we go. Where'd it go? I thought I just saw one. Oh, there it is. Oh, or is that oh, here it is. Sleep paralysis always happens in same dream over and over. Why?
Before I can really go further with that, I'd have to ask you what the contents of that dream are and what the most significant part of the reoccurring elements might be. And I can probably better answer that for you, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see if he reposts. Post. Lockbeard asks, have you ever experimented with DMT to achieve ego death experiences?
I have not had the, well, I'll say pleasure of being exposed to DMT yet, although it is on the list. I have worked with other hallucinogens, which I don't know if I can actually say the name or if we'll get.
All right.
Are we cool? LSD, mushrooms. I've worked with was the Datura plant.
I think we're cool because we're not monetized yet. So
yeah, I always want to play it safe, dude. I want to get you like somewhere or something. But yeah, I think that the great thing about these power plants, okay, I'll call them, is that they are tools for us to remember, you know, certain states of consciousness that are natural to us. For example, DMT is already present in our bodies. It's in our brain, and it's used in different ways through different experiences. It'll be released. That being said, you know, the whole spiritual revolution that we understand today, you know, started with a handful of individuals and philosophies, really. Carlos Castaneda, fortunately or unfortunately, being sort of at the helm of that too. That being said, these substances will take you so far. Okay. So if you've ever had a trip where you felt like you were all of a sudden connected to everything, any question you asked, you had the answer for it, all made perfect sense. You're in a state of balance in that nirvana. Okay. Where you have access to all that because of the substance that you just took. That being said, so many people will come back and say after the trip, I don't remember a damn thing. I was enlightened for the whole time I was there, but I don't remember anything. Well, the whole idea, especially when it came to like Egyptian schools of knowledge and so forth, was to get to a point that you were disciplined enough in a spiritual sense that the final test was to actually astral travel so far out into the ethers, gather as much information as that you possibly can, and to then anchor back into your body and then be able to talk, communicate, and distribute that information and live it. A lot of these individuals who did make it back were of the Christ consciousness and were enlightened to a certain degree. But there were many of those who just did not return because the, what's the word I'm looking for? The attraction of being out there and free and knowing everything again is so awesome that, you know, some of them would just say, no, we're not coming back. But that was the real test. So again, when it comes to substances, they'll only take you so far. And what happened was when people were using these substances a lot during the 60s and 70s, predominantly, they realized what I'm telling you now. And they said, well, how else can we reach that state of nirvana? And all of a sudden, the attention was turned to the Eastern philosophies. And we saw ashrams starting to pop up in and around America and so forth. And people began to meditate, and they started finding this other path that was more natural without the substances, something that we still use and work with today in terms of techniques. So it has its place, man. I really appreciate them when they're used correctly. But even when it comes to something like ayahuasca, you have to keep in mind that when you undergo something like that, there is also a spirit attached to that. And some of these indigenous spirits that, you know, go along and ride with the plant, that are the plant, don't leave you. So make sure you know what you get into before you decide to undertake something like that.
Did not know that.
I didn't either, actually, until I started talking to people who had had these experiences with ayahuasca, because everybody's going down to Peru and they're going in groups and, hey, let's go and drink some ayahuasca and having a lightning time. But as much as that's happening, and people are coming back, and I had this incredible experience, I'm so enlightened, there are some very sensitive people who are coming back saying, hey, listen, it was an interesting experience. I got something out of it, but this thing won't leave me alone. And it's been years now. It won't leave me alone. So she kind of takes you under her wing and calls you her own if you visit her in this way. And once you do it, you cannot go back. Or if you can, it's not an easy endeavor.
Wow. That's good to know. I mean, I've done acid once. You know, I smoke a lot of pot.
Yeah, me too. I smoke
You
lots
know,
of weed too.
I don't drink anymore, but yeah, I've done acid once. I've done mescaline once. You know, it was interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
I have read, you know, Teachings of Don Juan. You know, that
Yep.
was an interesting book to read.
I was curious, man. You know, the first time I did LSD, I think it was 13, and I knew nothing about it. And so I ended up taking this, and my entire world just blew up in, you know, the best of ways. I had a fantastic time, but there was something incredibly familiar about it that I just could never put my finger on. Anytime I've done a hallucinogen after that, there have been certain lessons that I will pick up within working with that, but nothing as impactful as that first experience, which influenced my music from that age up till
Oh
today.
wow,
Oh yeah, my art, my music, everything. If I never had that one acid trip, I would be an entirely different person.
interesting. I didn't have mine until I took it. Shit, I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't, you know, I can't really, it wasn't intense. But it definitely kicked in, and, you know, I experienced something, but it wasn't a bad thing. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'd say I'd do it again, but I have no desire to do it again. Just, you know.
Sometimes you don't need to. You just need
No,
that one experience, and that's it. You're done.
you know, the mesk thing, the mescaline was interesting. Oh yeah, I'm sitting there watching TV, and it's like 3 a.m, but I can't. My my vision and my audio won't match up. I'm watching it, and I can hear it fine, but I'm watching it in fast forward. And then when I slow it down, I can watch it fine, but I'm hearing it in fast forward. I was like, "What the hell?"
It's very different, man. It's different.
Uh,
It reminds you that there are other aspects of yourself that you're not aware of. So
it's true. Um, D. Stewart wants to know, any thoughts on Dogman?
Dogman is really interesting to me. This is something that's been popping up a lot more under that moniker. I think in the last 10, 15 years, if I were to go back that far even. This cryptid is becoming very popular and may one day get up to the same status as a Bigfoot if we keep seeing them. Now, I think that this cryptid is really cool because I believe that there's a flesh and blood aspect to it, which is not the same that you can say for every cryptid, certainly Bigfoot as well. But one begets the other sometimes. Where you see Bigfoot, you're finding Dogman. Where you're finding Dogman, you're finding Bigfoot. And people are noticing this, that are tracking these cryptids, that there are similarities in ways that they're sharing their environment and habitation. So, you know, I don't know. This is something that's really interesting to me because, you know, we all talk about werewolves in the classic sense. I put werewolves under the same canopy as vampires. I think it's folklore and directly reflective of the time period and the ignorance in ways of social constructs and medical constructs. I mean, people just didn't know, so they had to come up with superstitions to explain things. Now, that being said, it's possible that some of them actually did see what we know to be a Dogman. You know, these things have been recorded for a very long time in
Sure.
one way or another.
I
So,
mean, it goes back to Egypt. I mean,
yes,
you know,
yes.
the who was it? With the jackal head, the
Oh
head of a
God, it's
jackal. Anubis.
is it I think it's Anubis.
Anubis.
I think it's Anubis, and that actually was, I believe, it was actually symbolic of the Syrians, because I think the Syrians have the dog in their culture for whatever reasons. I don't mean Syrians here on Earth. I mean the Syrians in Sirius constellation, Sirius B, I think, to be exact. They had a lot of influence. I don't think it was the Pleiades. I think it was the Syrians that might have inspired that dog bust. Honestly,
Back
in
back in
history.
Egypt.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys know otherwise, please correct me.
Bim Jim, what's up, buddy? He says there are no dogmen over here on the west coast of Canada.
None that you've seen yet.
Yeah.
Hey, the woods are so full of different life. And I'm not just talking about physical life. The woods hold that magical end of life too. I mean, you walk through the woods by yourself, you can feel it, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and like I've been through, like I live 15 miles away from Sedona, Arizona. Mystical place. There are some interesting things that go on there, and a lot of I'm guessing there's ley lines that pass over the area, cross over one another. Interesting area.
You guys got a lot of natural portals out there too.
Vortexes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and people profit off of it.
Yeah.
Any way they can. Okay, DHP, falling, seeing outs, but can't grab them, can't move hard, breathing, then boom, release, and it's all gone. That goes back. Is that an answer to the last question with the? Hold
I think
on.
that's with the dream. I think it is.
Yeah.
Falling, seeing out, but can't. All right, I'm going to do my best with this here.
Can't move, hard breathing, and boom.
Okay, so when you're in this dream, are you in a void space? Is there anything in front of you? Can you see anything? Is there anyone with you? What's your overall feeling before you start falling? Do you feel that's imminent, that's going to come no matter what you do? Or is it something that sort of just haps on you and catches you by surprise? Either way, I mean, a lot of times when that happens, there's an aspect of us that is being pushed out of the body. And I think that's where the weakness in energy comes from, because you physically can't move because you're not entirely in the body. Excuse me. It's very possible that, something could be pushing from one end or the other and sort of, mimicking that steadfast hold, wherein it's probably illusory because you're still in your body to some degree. It just feels this way. It's a scare tactic, I think, when it comes to things. But when it comes to what he's describing here, there's a possibility that something traumatic happened and he's reliving that through dream. And this is how his mind is processing it, that trauma. And it might not be physical. You know what I mean? It could be something left over from another incarnation. But I would have to know more detail about the dream in order to really, go into the analysis of that event.
Somebody just asked, aren't werewolves and dogmen the same thing, basically?
I don't think so. I think werewolves are more traditional folklore, and I think dogmen is, something that we're actually observing out there in nature. Now, again, could one or the other sort of have influence on their existence? Maybe. As I mentioned, it's possible that somebody saw dogman and then came up with the concept of werewolf. But and it also shares some thoughts with shape shifting and so forth. So that's interesting to take into play too. I think a lot of it is derived from indigenous cultures when it comes to phenomena like that.
Well, it's funny because if I were to see a dog man, the first thing I would think of is a werewolf.
Sure.
Because that's my frame of reference. Well, it was before I knew what a dog man was. I mean, 2 years ago, I never heard of a dog man.
Well, you're right. That's your frame of reference, and that's what you would call it if you saw it. I mean, no one could blame you for that.
But it's funny how you get into like I got into Bigfoot and just listening to all these stories, and all of a sudden you start hearing dogman stories, and you're like, what the hell is that? Wait a minute. Let me one cryptid at a time, people. It's like, let me work on this one, then we'll concentrate, But yeah, and you hear so many people say, there's like Michael say it, Long Island Bigfoot. He's like, there's a lot more stuff out there than you realize. Not just Bigfoot and dogman. There's, things that we just will never see, And I'm kind of jealous is I don't know if that's the word, because obviously you're sensitive, you have that gift. Mine's all over the place. It's like, my trying to harness whatever I have is like trying to herd cats. It's impossible.
Oh, that's funny. I think that, anybody has the potential to become sensitive or become more sensitive than what they are. I think it's a natural state that our bodies and our minds experience. It's just a matter of what you want to focus on. It's like anything else. You pick up a hobby or a passion, you put your energy into it, you're going to start noticing results. I mean, it's the same thing as if you want to cultivate energy work, you want to work with clairvoyance, you have to sit and you have to practice and you have to feel it out and you have to be able to discern what is spirit talking to you and what is your internal dialogue and how do they sound different. How can you differentiate the two again?
Sure.
So I mean, yeah, all of it takes work, and some people will have it come easier than others, and I think that's because some people have spent, let's call them past lives, learning that stuff already. If you spend couple lifetimes as some sort of monk that lives his life in silence and literally sits in silence for most of his life, I mean, you bring that into this lifetime, somebody brings up meditation, you might have a very intuitive understanding of that and be able to go, oh my God, this guy goes into meditation like he's been doing it his whole life. It's the first time. Well, it's because he had that experience and it's still recorded with him or her.
Johnny Half wants to know, I don't know the reference, so Laura Eisenhower, what do you think of Laura Eisenhower?
Laura Eisenhower, this is, I mean, I know who she is, but I don't really know much of what she's done or what you're referencing specifically.
All right. I don't know who she is.
I feel like I just came across her recently too. I just don't remember enough about it.
Somebody will bring it up. That sounds great. I watch some shows and this guy just, I'm not even going to mention the channel, but he'll just like gets all his answers. He has chat do all his work. I'm like, dude, do something.
Yeah. That's part of it. That's part of it. I mean, I'm learning as much as anybody else is. You guys come to my shows and you're listening to these guests. Yeah, I'm learning the same things that you guys are. I mean, some of the things they talk about, I've heard for the first time right then and there, and I'll run with it, man. Sure. I love it.
Oh yeah. When you can learn something, unexpectedly, it's like, oh wow, wait a minute. That's awesome.
Oh God. Yeah.
Oh, Duke is here. What's up, buddy? And Ray Daw, good to see you. Cat. Wow, what do we have? 66 watching.
All right. Guys are awesome.
Okay. Johnny says she is a very spiritual, in touch individual. That would be Laura Eisenhower.
I have to look into her more then. I'll put that in my notes right here. And thank you.
No worries.
Well, maybe I'll reach out.
Pat Mom says it's the granddaughter of Eisenhower. I guess President Eisenhower.
That much I knew, but
I knew the name, but I didn't know it was the same. It's funny because when I grew up, as a kid, my address was Eisenhower Drive.
Oh, that's interesting. That's funny.
525 Eisenhower Drive, and 525 for me. Whenever that pops up, I know my mom's like saying hi.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. I pay attention to numbers.
You have to. These are the little ways that spirit interacts with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's those little nods and little, like I like 111, 222, 333, all those numbers, like they call them angelic numbers. And when you see one, you're supposed to pay attention to what you're thinking about at the moment when you see it. And I try to do that. I don't know. It's just something I do,
Me too. It was really weird. I remember when I first started researching sacred geometry, and of course, numerology came with that. Here's something I can't explain. And if anybody's had an experience that's similar to this, please let me know. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Mogs. Let us know that you had something similar. So again, I was very ensconced in sacred geometry, and basically that's what I was doing. I was learning all about that and the math behind it and physics and everything. And I remember driving home one day. I think I was in college at the time, and I had a good couple hour drive, and I'm driving through the highway here, and I'm seeing trees on my right and left, and all of a sudden, it was like in my mind's eye, overlaid over this reality was, God, I don't even, it was like a matrix. It was like I was looking at numbers and quantifications, which actually was within the material that we have here on Earth. So I saw a lot of this when I was looking in the trees, and this, came very quickly to me, and I was trying to interpret it as I was going. And I'm like, well, what did I see? Does everything just have a numeric value in some way, shape, or form? That would be kind of odd considering, I believe everything is organic. But if that was the case, this was before I even really considered, the matrix theory and so forth, that we might be living in one. I've seen the Matrix movies, and those were cool. But it's not something that influenced me.
It wasn't an implied
further.
theory.
Yeah, not really. I thought it was a neat idea, but it wasn't something that I really considered. But after I've seen this, and I've only seen it this one time, I still can't explain what that was. So if anybody's had an experience that's similar to that, please let me know.
Definitely. Miss Real Deal wants to know, why can people hear sounds audibly without a voice recorder? Is it stronger spirit or a more traumatizing event that makes it possible?
So I'm going to assume that you're talking about why we can hear stuff on EVPs recorded on audio, and whether it's a tape recorder or video. Wait, hold on. Let me look at this again here.
Yeah, why can people hear sounds audibly without?
I can address this a different way here. All right. So my interpretation is that sometimes spirit is able to project sound much much easier than perhaps a visual representation. Why that's the case, I'm not 100%. I understand that once you get over on the other side, you start realizing where you are, and then have to kind of relearn to make your way around this new environment. Everything is dictated by thought. So as soon as you think something, you're either in that location, or this, something appears in front of you. Again, very fourth dimensional. So I think some spirits are able to stick with that for longer than perhaps some others will, and they understand how to manipulate our reality in the same way as some people can move physical objects using their minds right here. Telekinesis, correct. So that being said, that's one idea. Another idea I have is that these entities actually connect with your arc field. Now, we've had plenty of instances where somebody has been watching a UFO with their friend standing right next to him. He's looking up at the sky. One guy sees something and the other guy doesn't see anything. They're witnessing the exact same event, but they're both seeing something completely different. Same with the paranormal world as well. Sometimes somebody will hear something and the person standing next to them will not hear it at all. I remember whenever I've had these voices talking to me, they seem like they're like inches away from my ear, but they're almost in my head. And now I'm thinking, I don't know if this can be something audible, and I've never really caught anything during my experimentation with this particular aspect of spirit. But I've often wondered, is that something that is in the environment as well as within my hearing? So it's an interesting thought, but I think that spirit can manipulate more readily, I think, than we learn to do it here. Maybe that's because things are a lot heavier here in the third dimension. It takes longer to manifest thought.
I've had interesting things happen with not telekinesis, but like psychic stuff. And it depends on the other person. I've had it's weird. I've connected with certain people that was just incredible, where you can 500 miles away, you're reading each other's minds.
Well, it really gives you the understanding that space and time, the way we know it, don't exist when it comes to traversing, these spiritual highways or other avenues of connection, higher vibrations.
Toby, good night. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for the questions. Who else? Let's see what else we got here. Lockbeard says, drop quantum physics. It's wrong. to understand. Everybody's entitled to their opinion here, by the way. To understand the universe, how the universe really functions, I only know one person who presents the correct science online. Ken Wheeler, YouTube channel, Theory Apophysis.
Well,
Theoria Apophysis.
I really appreciate your thought on that, Lockbeard. I will say that I am a little concerned only because you're crediting one source as being the voice of
The
truth.
source.
And
I think
I think that there are many people who have different facets to contribute to these subjects, and perception. We all have different perceptions, and I think that they lock into each other in one way, shape, or form on some level when it comes down to this. Now, when you talk about quantum physics, there are other interpretations of classic quantum physics that we're just getting into now. We could talk about that slit experiment where, long story short, they're sending light particles through different slits, and they notice that when somebody's observing, these molecules behave differently than when they're not observing. So what does that say to you? I mean, there's something there for sure. We have more impact on this reality than we understand. And if it starts at the molecular level in the way of observation, then so be it. But I encourage you to look at everything, man, and just have an open mind. Believing this one person is the source for you, that's great. When you're doing other research, challenge what he's telling you and what other people are saying. See if there's anything that resonates for you. And that's what I would do, man.
Yeah, that's great advice. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, there just could be other possibilities. And if you limit yourself, you're not seeing the whole. You're not seeing the totality of this.
Hilton Whittlewood wants to know, is there a way to train yourself to hear more?
Very good question. I want to say that there is, but right now I can't give you any examples of how that might come around.
No exercises or anything to do. Yeah.
The only thing I can say in the way of hearing spirit for yourself, in the way of channeling, is that when you hear that voice come in, and a lot of times it squeaks in when you're not paying attention, when you're looking at a can of beans in the grocery store, and it's that voice that says, "Hey, you see that woman over there at the end of the aisle? Go tell her mother's going to be okay." And you're like, "Oh, well, that's it. Listen, I'm just getting some beans, man. I'm hungry. I got dinner coming soon. Where are the hot dogs?" And here comes this voice. Go tell her mother's okay. Just go and tell her. And it's when it's persistent and it's strong and it sometimes feels like something outside of yourself, that's when you want to start paying attention and try to realize, when that comes in. And that's happened to me before too. As a teenager, I was very aware, and my journey really started when I was young, as I've mentioned. And so by the time I was 17, 18, I was full blown clairvoyant. And, I was still kind of wrestling how to ground that. And sure enough, that happened to me. I was in a grocery store. I was looking at something. Spirit says, "Go tell her mother's okay." And I argued with Spirit for a little while, or that voice. And finally, it just kind of won over. And I said, "Well, you know what? I don't have anything to lose. If she doesn't know what I'm talking about, she doesn't have to see me again. I'm just a kid. Who cares?" I went right over to the woman. I said, "Listen, I know this is really weird, but I feel like I have to give you a message. So take it as you will." And that's it. And she says, "Okay." I said, "Well, the message is your mother's going to be okay." And I kid you not, this woman's face just dropped. And she was like, "Oh my God, my mother's been in the hospital for the last week and a half, and she's got this condition, whatever it is. And doctors are saying they're not sure what they can do," and gave me this whole thing and says, "Thank you very much. I really needed to hear that." And I mean, even now as I'm talking about it, I can feel the energy kind of rising, the hair on you get the frisson. Yeah, you get the frisson effect there. So, I mean, these things come. And if you want to work with trying to hear, again, try to separate your internal dialogue with another voice that's always there with you in one way, shape, or form.
Sure. What else? What are we at? Hour and 34 minutes. Duke says, "Master Poe told me, Grasshopper, you cannot find Bigfoot. You must make Bigfoot find you." Right on, Duke.
Listen, he's not wrong.
No, not at all.
He's not wrong.
Real deal. Where's your backup? What do you need backup for?
Backup.
I got your back.
Here's my backup right here. Ready? Nice big chunk of rose quartz.
Oh,
There you go.
nice.
You put that on your chest, you're going to feel it.
Explain.
So different semi-precious stones and crystals, they all carry certain vibration.
Hmm.
There's been a lot of talk about what that vibration is and how it might relate to our energy. And I believe a lot of the mystics and folks of spirituality and indigenous beliefs have figured it out to some degree. Crystals are something that we talk about a lot. I have this double pointed crystal, and this is good for communication. So I'll actually put this between myself and the guest or whoever I'm talking to on the computer, with the idea that this is more of an amplifier for clarity in our conversation. So each one of these stones, let's say the semi-precious stones, they again hold a certain vibration, and that goes according to color and composition. People have related these colors and vibrations to our chakras. So, for example, the rose quartz here is pink. Another color that is associated with the heart chakra is green. So you can use malachite or something like that, adventurine, in that way. Excuse me, the same way that you would use this. So you place this on the chest, and for me, a lot of times this balances the chakra out. And I have many stones, which I could do a laying on stones, or you can take the crystals and put them at the meridians as you lay down. And then this will actually, you could do energy healing work with this as well. I'll tell you something very quickly, because this was kind of neat. I've been into the stones for a very long time, and the crystals as well. So back when I was doing the sacred geometry studies and so forth, I was following Drunvalo Melchizedek's Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life workshop. And I came across online this experiment where you're going to take, essentially, you're going to construct a 3x3 cube out of copper piping. And inside this cube, you're going to put 12 mason jars with tap water, city tap water. And you're going to put these crystals that you've cleansed either through the moon or burying them in the ground or putting them in the freezer, however you want to do it, in the sunlight, whatever the case is. You cleanse these crystals, put them into the jars. And I took one extra jar, so I had 13 altogether, and I put one aside outside of the cube as a control. Okay, still had the crystals in it with the dirty Lowell tap water. That's why I was living in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Lowell, Massachusetts. Did
Yeah,
you go to University of Massachusetts?
I did for 2 years. I
Right
did.
on. I
Yeah,
know
it
it's
was
in
interesting.
Lowell.
Yeah.
Well,
Music, of course.
just before I moved out here, I went to see Brian Wilson at the university,
Oh,
the
nice.
Beach Boys. Yeah,
Oh,
so I
that's
saw.
awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
control.
So I put the control on the side, and I had 7 other guys that
12.
lived with me in the suite, who were watching me do this shit and shaking their head going, God, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever. So my immediate roommate, he was a little more supportive, but he was just very curious and didn't know what to expect, and honestly neither did I. So this experiment, essentially, you do a meditation, a Merkaba meditation, which was a lighter meditation. It wasn't as heavy as the actual Merkaba meditation that Trunvalo teaches, where you're bringing everything in and you're spinning your tetrahedrons and so forth in your auric field. But you were to direct all this energy into this cube and then seal it off and then leave it for 3 days. Don't let anything go inside the cube. Don't take anything out. So I did, and sat in my room. My roommate moved around it. All the people that came over would move around it and whatever. And what the hell is that? Whatever. Okay. So the end of the third day came, and actually my immediate roommate was the only one home at the time. I said, yeah, come on, we're going to go and check this out. Let's see what happened. He's like, all right, cool. So we go over, and I pull out one of the jars that's inside the cube, undo the lid, and I take a sip. I kid you not, this stuff tasted like syrup. Like it was a light honey. It had a sweetness to it, and it was clean. Like if you put water through a Brita filter. I didn't
Mhm.
taste anything. I'm like, what the hell? And I gave it to him, and he took a sip. He goes, this is the same water? I said, yeah, nobody's moved any of this. We haven't touched it. And he's like, I can't believe this. I said, all right, let's try this. I pull out the control, took a sip, and it was dirty tap water from Lowell. It tasted weird, and you could smell it as soon as you open it. I was like, what the hell happened? So I've only done this experiment once, but we had 12 mason jars full of this super clean, clear, very hydrating water that I took from a Lowell tap. It's just amazing, what you can
Wow.
actually do.
Mikey wants to know, speaking of water, what is your thoughts on water and its ability to hold memory through frequencies?
100% I agree that water has that capability. In fact, if you look at the molecular structure of water, you can actually ascertain what the history of the water itself is and what kind of vibrations it may hold. There's something called clustered water. It's very, very good for you. Apparently, vibrationally, it's more in line with your cells and the way your bodies work. And you can find this stuff too. People actually have it. It's sort of like atomic.
Is
What
that
is that?
structured water or? I had a buddy who made a system. He said it was structured water, and he made this filter system, and
There's
he
something
swore
like
by
that.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, there's something like that. I'm not sure what the process that they use, and I don't think it's as esoteric as perhaps what I was doing. I think there's a more mechanical process involved. But yeah, definitely water is an absolute record keeper, the same way that crystals are. They carry
quartz.
that vibration. And in fact, when I started meditating when I was very young, I was 14 when I started to actually consciously meditate. I went to a reading a little while after, and the psychic had told me, she said, when you do your meditation, number one, you should be sitting up. Okay. You shouldn't be laying down. For you, this is what you have to do. And two, take a glass of water and put it next to you, because what's going to happen is your energy in one way, shape, or form, whether it's coming in or going out, is going to filter through this water. She says this water is supposed to purify the experience. And she says, as soon as you're done with the meditation, do not drink the water, because it's going to absorb certain
Sure.
negativities and impurifications. So you got to throw that out immediately. So that was my introduction to understanding that water had cellular memory. And of course, the research that I did, again, into clustered water, and it's similar to monatomic gold in the way that it's going to affect the body. It raises consciousness and promotes overall health and well-being, to perhaps an immeasurable, what's the word I'm looking for? Immeasurable height. God, lost for words there.
Oh, it happens to me all the time.
Yeah, it's good. You roll around with one until it seems to work.
Okay, Mikey says Davis Creek, California. Actually, you can take 100 pounds of obsidian a day, and it is the finest in the world. It's raining all over the place.
It's awesome.
Huh.
Obsidian's incredibly grounding. We have Herkimer, New York, up here where we mine for Herkimer diamonds. We call them. They're essentially crystals. Yeah.
I think I've been there.
No kidding.
Herkimer. Huh.
Beautiful, beautiful countryside.
Keep having to scroll down.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Lee 3PO, he's over in London. He wants to know if we'll take the Carolina Reaper challenge. Probably not.
I've already eaten many Carolina Reapers, brother. I mean, I've got Carolina Reaper, Trinidad Scorpion, and habanero hot sauce sitting right behind me, waiting to go in anything I put it in. Listen, I'm all about hot stuff.
I put sriracha on like everything. Everything.
I mean, I love it, dude. I mean, the stuff I usually use a ghost pepper sauce, and I put that on everything. So
I like hot stuff. It just doesn't agree with me later.
You have to build up a tolerance. I know nobody wants to hear me say that, but you do. It's not just your mouth you're working that tolerance for. It's everything else in your body.
It's the final destination is a rough one.
Again, until you get that tolerance, and then it's just no problem anymore. I mean, what is this guy, Johnny Scoville on YouTube? Watch this guy eat, straight capsaicin right from a bottle, just drinking the stuff. I mean, after he's eaten all these peppers, the guy has a tolerance that's out of it. So
can't be good for you though.
It is actually. It's very good for you. Capsaicin is one of the best naturally occurring substances you can put in. What?
I don't know that whole. I love hot stuff. I do. I love, but it's that whole when I don't like too hot.
I understand. Believe me, I do. I get that. When you get to a certain point where you're eating these super hot peppers and you're eating the hot sauce and stuff on everything, it's not necessarily about the heat. It's about the flavor of the pepper itself. But you have to get past the heat in order to appreciate the flavor of the pepper.
All right. Lockbeard is addressing Ken Wheeler again. Ken Wheeler addresses structured water. All you have to do is wipe it like a hard drive with neodymium Diminium. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that. Magnet. Just wrap tubing around a magnet several times and funnel questionable water through. All right. Yeah, and that's the way
Cool.
it was. My buddy made something that was attached to his hose and
That's cool.
had, however he did it, I didn't like, I don't know. I didn't see the blueprints for it, so I don't know how he made it, but he swore by it.
Well, if who was it that just said that? Lockbeard, right?
Yeah.
Lock, do you have any blueprints of that, or if you can steer me in the direction of where I can find the information that Ken shared, describing how to build that, send me an email at darkhourparanormallive@gmail.com and I will build it.
I have a friend. I'll have to try to get in touch with him and find out how he built the structured water filter.
That'd be awesome.
Where else are we? Last of the Wilds. What's up, buddy? I'm going to throw this out there as soon as I read this. I love hot sauce, but now that I'm older, the heartburn kicks in, and I feel like Fred Sanford. It's the big one. That's awesome. For you guys out there, Last of the Wild is looking for stories. If anybody's had experiences with orbs, as far as like in the woods, lights in the woods, stuff you can't explain, but pertaining to lights, I don't know if it's UFO. I don't think it's more UFO stuff. It's more orbs. People are seeing orbs in the woods all the time. He's looking for stories on any orbs. You can send them to me for now. I will post later on. I'll post Last's email address. But Last wants to do a kind of a documentary. So on that. And guess who gets to narrate? Me. Yeah, I think that'll be cool.
That's awesome. You got the voice for it, man. No question about that.
Right on. It's weird. I the first thing I ever narrated was actually from Last of the Wilds, and it was a Bigfoot thing, and it was just cool that the first thing that I narrated.
Oh, it's awesome.
TFE says, you want good H2O, go to New Zealand and catch rainwater.
Yeah, you're right about it.
Yeah, Tony says the after effects, Moog. Yeah, hot sauce. The after effects are brutal. Rill's asking, when you see ghost vids, why are they always peeking around corners? And are they so fast because they are not dense like us?
Well, I think that you can look at certain spirit, especially in the paranormal sense, in the way of perhaps more of a thought than something material. Everything is vibration. Everything is layered in frequency. And, we naturally traverse through these frequencies within the course of our lives and, of course, afterwards. Now, how we could isolate one frequency from another, I think we're attempting to sort of do and identify when we talk about paranormal activity and research as much. There's still a big hill to climb in understanding how that works. Some of these spirits, they're bashful, or they're very shy and they don't want to come out and immediately expose themselves, or they might be afraid of us too. I mean, there's that as well, or they're just unconscious of us entirely. Well, I remember watching this ghost hunting episode, Ghost Hunters, I think it was back in I don't remember when it was, but they were in a colonial house, and all I remember is that they were trying to connect with something that was there, and they're saying, oh, are you here, and you hear this gruff voice coming, yes, I'm here, where are you? And they're like, well, we're right here. And they pretty much determined that they were in the same space, but just they were missing each other like this. They could communicate through the recorder, which was odd, or they could hear each other but you couldn't see. So when it comes to the paranormal activity, I think that they're moving quickly because they're definitely not as dense, and they're more wisped in nature than we are. We're physical in this body. So
let's see what we're looking at. Hour and 10 minutes. No, hour and 50 minutes. Wow. That went by pretty quick.
Time flies, my friend.
That's funny. Usually I'm looking at it, dreading it, going, God damn, this is going to take forever. No, just in the sense of to try to get through 2 hours. Um, Sometimes it drags, and other times it's usually that first hour that just kind of drags. And then after that, it just takes off. It's weird.
As long as you get the energy going up and it starts to escalate, things just
Yeah, no,
really
and then
take a
it
natural
flows.
course.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Razor blades as I run for the outhouse. I'm not sure I get that.
I think it's talking about hot sauce. Listen, I've only thrown up once off eating a hot pepper that was just too much, and it's because I didn't have enough in my stomach as it was. It was a Trinidad scorpion. It was a chocolate variety. The thing was like this big too. It was super small, and I ate this thing. I was like, all right, it's good. And then next thing you know, the pain. Oh my God, the pain was not like, oh my God, my stomach hurts. It's like the tips of my fingers hurt because it's radiating from my chest outward, and like my toes started going numb. And I was like, this isn't good. It was just the body was having an overload, a sensory overload with the pain involved. That was the only time that I've, excavated anything in my stomach regarding that. So,
wow.
Yeah, if you're gonna eat hot stuff, you have to have a base in your stomach, dude. That's it.
Here's an interesting Marla Chapman. What do you think is causing Mandela effects?
Man, I don't know. I don't really like this one, and I'll tell you why. There are too many variables involved here about what people remember. Memory is not the best thing to always rely on. It's the curious things, the consistency of people remembering the same thing. If that wasn't the case, then I don't think there really would be a Mandela effect.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example too. I was talking to Rich the other day, and I mentioned a commercial that I saw back in, I guess it was the 90s. Early 90s with Michael Jordan. It was a Wheaties commercial. And we both remembered this one specific ending on the commercial, but we couldn't find it. We found something that was similar, but it wasn't exactly what we remembered. And we kind of came to the consensus that maybe we're remembering it incorrectly. But
you both remembered the same thing?
It's still odd that we remember the same thing. Could that be a result of the collective consciousness that we all share and are plugged into? Once an idea goes into that collective consciousness, anybody can pull it out. And sometimes it comes naturally. How many times have you thought of something, maybe not you per se, but people in general, how many times have somebody thought something in the way of inventing something new? All right, many times I've done it myself. I'm like, oh, well, this could solve this problem. This is how you could do it. And that's usually as far as it would go for me.
And you don't act on it, and a week later, somebody else came out with it.
Boom. I think that there's a big reason for that having to do with the collective consciousness that we all, again, are all plugged into.
Got some good questions tonight. It's awesome.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Audrey Allen, what's up? Welcome. What else? TFE says, what do you think about Unacknowledged and Dr. Greer?
I actually haven't seen Unacknowledged, and I'm embarrassed to admit that because I was supposed to watch it as Nicole Sakic had recommended it to me months ago.
Why do I know that?
Unacknowledged is a very big film dealing with UFOs and disclosure, I believe.
Yeah, I have seen that. I did see that.
Greer himself is a really interesting figure. I think the guy is very passionate about what he's talking about and what he's sharing with us. I think he's very deeply invested in the material that he's putting forward. I think he might be one of the closer ones to giving us the truth without being able to give us everything, given who he is and what he knows and what he's done. That being said, there are a handful of people who are really at the forefront in our field, and they're all presenting this same information, but in different ways. So Dr. Greer has CE5. Well, a lot of what happened with CE5 or what's written in CE5, it's been brought to my attention, is also in the AA handbook. Okay, a lot of those concepts, which is odd. I didn't know that until somebody informed me that was the case. But the AA handbook came out first. After that, I mean, you saw some of these principles in other spiritual writings and practices, even of the time. So what Dr. Greer has done is he's made a very spiritual concept, something accessible for people, and then focused it on the extraterrestrial phenomenon, which I believe everything is connected anyway. So it's, again, a natural trajectory to do something like that, I think. So, but again, here's really the crux of all of this when it comes to these central figures. We are all doing the exact same thing. If you are pure at heart and your intention is pure and you're looking for that real truth, and believe me, if you lie to people, you're lying to yourself. There's no reason to do that stuff. I mean, and hoax things and whatever, you're lying to yourself if you believe it in any sense.
Trust me, I agree 100%.
And it's too much effort, honestly, in my opinion, to exert that much energy in the way of falsifying stuff. It's just, I mean, people do it, but it's usually pretty paper thin, and eventually is discovered as what it really is. But that being said, we're all doing the same thing, and those who are here right now involved, Dr. Greer, even Third Phase of Moon, or Rich, or myself, or Mug. Mugs. We're all planting seeds, because this is what we're here doing now. We're discovering these bits of information and things that we're remembering within our cellular constructs and spirituality. And that's our focus. We're here to plant these seeds. We may not see those seeds blossom and grow in this lifetime, but that's what we're here doing right now. So we're supposed to do. We're the introduction to the new age that's coming. And it's not us personally. It's not an ego thing. It's what I signed up for to come down here and do. So guess what? That's what the fuck I'm going to do. You know what I mean? And it's the same for a lot of other people who feel this strongly about this path in particular.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that, some people don't believe in reincarnation and going around twice, 3, 4 times, so for you to say it matter of factly, like you just said, that's what I'm here to do. A lot of people can't say that. They don't know why they're here.
I understand that. And that's okay, because that's part of the path too. We all wake up at some point. Will it always be in this life? Will it always be in this form? No, it won't. In fact, one of the reasons that the earth is such an interesting place is that we have souls on many different levels of evolution within their own right, existing in the same space. That's why we've gotten a lot of conflict in this third dimension, because we're all on different varying vibrations, wherein I've understood that this sort of experiment is incredibly empirical and has not been done in our immediate universe before. So take that for what it's worth.
True. Hilton says, let's go back a subject, but how do you make good water to drink energy-wise?
It's a very good question. And honestly, the only thing I can say is, what I've done with my experiments in working with crystals. I know that there are other ways to make water more pure, but I honestly don't have the answer to that. Good question, though.
Yeah. Hilton's down in New Zealand. Great guy. I like Hilton a lot. He's fun. Let's see what else we got here. This is funny. My son came on New Year's Eve and he just put "Son of Moog."
I saw that. I watched some of that.
Right on.
Yeah, right on. That's cool. That's really cool.
Okay. Exactly. Lies will ruin your life, not just ruin your life. The truth will set you free. I make it a point, and I kind of pride myself on it. I don't lie. You don't lie. You don't have to remember shit.
Nope. See, it's easier.
It's just, I don't hate either. Hate. It's too much energy to hate.
Yep.
I got better shit to do.
Believe it. No, seriously. I was never a hateful person, but I was a very angry person growing up.
I've been angry.
Very angry. But I've learned that you can't hold on to that anger forever. It's going to ruin you if it does. I mean, I've had issues where I'm in the car cursing this event or what happened between this person and myself or whatever the case is in the past. And then I did that until I realized that it did nothing but bring me down. I'm like, oh, well, this hasn't helped me resolve my feelings. I just stopped doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to realize that, it's serving no purpose,
Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's what's going to set you free.
and it's not easy, to be able
No.
to just say fuck it and
Nope.
let shit go. It's not, but it's possible.
It's definitely, I mean, again, if you don't face it now, you face it later. If you don't face it, if it's an emotional issue and you bury that deep enough, you ignore it for long enough, it becomes a physical issue. Then you can't ignore it anymore.
Sure.
So, it's not easy, and it's easier said than done. Believe me, we can talk about this all day, but when we're faced with the actual challenge, we sometimes have to dig deep into our pockets of personality and find that strength.
Absolutely. I'm proud to say that I've overcome a lot of things in my life recently in the past 3 years, 4 years,
Excellent.
that I didn't know it was possible. Like just quitting drinking,
Mm-hmm.
kicking out addiction after over 30 years, and out of necessity, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you.
Yep. Yep.
But it's with that strength that I realized that life is livable. I realized quitting that. I still don't know why I drank. Like, what the hell was I running from? I can't figure that out. I haven't really sat down to figure it out, but
Mm-hmm.
it's, I've talked about it before. I mean, addiction's a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
It just takes away everything. And once I got rid of that, it gave me everything back.
You hear this so
And it took
often.
work, but it took work. It doesn't just
Oh
come.
yeah.
Like New Year's Eve, I said, everybody have an amazing year, but it's not just going to happen. You have to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to do something different. If you get home and your normal routine is to get in that front door, pull off your coat and pour a drink, just do something different once and see how it feels, where you pull yourself out of that habit, as an example. So don't be afraid to try something new, and know that you can always try something new. As long as you're walking, breathing, and still alive, you can do something different, and you have the power to make that choice. And just do it for curiosity's sake. See what happens if I don't do this, if I don't watch 5 hours of television when I get home, if I don't turn on the computer and look up porn, if I don't reach for that bottle or whatever the case may be. Just try something different.
Sure. Kim, good night. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it's possible. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
possible. I'm living proof. You can ask. Well, my sister just left, but you ask my family, and you know, they're happy I quit drinking. I'm happy I quit drinking.
Oh, believe me, I understand it too. My family, extended family, especially, were very, very heavy alcoholics, and I lost most of them to that alone.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
my whole family was too.
Yeah.
From my mother to her mother to her father to the brothers, and but it is what it is. Don't
Mm-hmm.
don't be embarrassed by it. I'm an alcoholic. I admit it. I just don't drink anymore. I'll always be an alcoholic. I will always have a problem with alcohol. So
And I also believe that, if you want to talk about spiritual agreements before you come down into this incarnation, you set yourself up with certain designs, okay, certain plans, if you want to use those words for lack of better definition, to give you certain experiences. So perhaps I'm just going to throw this out there. Some of those who are struggling with addiction and are overcoming addiction in this life, maybe that's the experience that they wanted to have. Now, you couldn't have that experience necessarily if you weren't born into a family that already had that sort
of
of
addicts, sure,
indoctrinated in, and so therefore you give yourself that escape, but you have to step up. And that's part of a spiritual lesson. It's very heavy for a lot of people, especially when it comes to things like addiction. But it's again another tool, another hurdle to overcome, to be more of your true self.
absolutely.
If you can do it, if you've got the strength. Some of us don't. I understand that.
Hilton, this is a good addiction. Don't worry about it. I have to stop getting home from work and straight away seeing if WTF is on the YouTube. It's a great addiction. I support that one.
Yeah, me too. I second that.
Well, listen, Michael, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight and joining us. Amazing, amazing information. and thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm sure everybody in chat really enjoyed it. And don't forget, guys, this Friday I will be on Dark Hour Paranormal, and he'll get to hear my stories.
Oh, we're gonna wheedle them out of you, buddy.
I give them up freely.
I know, I'm kidding.
I enjoy telling my stories. You know,
very easy person to talk to.
I love telling my stories. I think they're cool as hell, and you know, most people when I tell a story, they walk away, you know, with goosebumps.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, if you want to say goodnight to chat, now's the time.
Well, chat, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for all the contributions and weight of questions. Really helps the show move along and it lets us know that you guys are curious too. And Absolutely. This is one of the special things about these sort of broadcasts where we can interact with you and, you know, get some of these other juices flowing in terms of creativity and intellect. So thank you very much, guys. Definitely come by Dark Hour Paranormal on Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be there with Muggs, and we're going to get into the life of what he's led and his experiences, as we mentioned before. But yeah, again, that's at Dark Hour Paranormal. It's Dark Hour space Paranormal. If you type it in another way, you may not find me. So that being said, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you again. And I'll be backstage in a minute if you want to hang out. If you got to bounce, it's up to you. I understand. But
nope.
Thanks again, man.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry. My pleasure. So, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this show. I really I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and he's got a lot to say. And Real says, thanks, Dark Hour Mogs. We will see you Friday. Fantastic. I hope you all join us. And I'll put the link. Remember, I just said this the other day. If I said I'm going to do this, I'm lying, but I think I figured it out. So I will put the link in the description to Dark Hour Paranormal, and this way you guys can find it easier. And again, thank you guys so much for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. I don't have anything planned yet for Thursday, but there's still, you know, a bunch of hours in between now and then. So I'm sure I can come up with something. So we will see you then. If you guys if you like the show, hit that like and share. If you're new, subscribe. If you like it, if not, don't. But anyway, thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. And I will see you in 2 days on Thursday night. And we'll see you then. All right. Peace and God bless.